You, of all people, dare to criticize me, the next company president? You're 100 years too early for that. With those words, a beer was dumped over my head. I was utterly shocked. Never in my life did I expect someone would pour beer on me. But what came next was pure, fiery anger. I will never forgive this. I pulled out my phone and called a certain person. That's when everything began. My name is Marty, and I'm 35 years old. I currently live and work in Germany. While I'm a born and raised American, Germany has become my second home. I'd love to be fluent in other languages. I'd been fascinated by foreign languages since middle school, so I decided to pursue a degree at a university specializing in linguistics. At the time, language exchange apps were trending, and I used one as both a learning tool and a way to connect with people. It was surprisingly fun, and I found myself getting deeply immersed in the app. Hello? That's how I first met Anna, a German resident. She would later become my wife. Hi. Nice to meet you. Anna, who was the same age as me and studying English, immediately caught my eye. She was so beautiful, I wondered if I was speaking to a living doll. We had similar values and found many things in common as we talked. Anna, I really enjoy talking to you. I'd love to chat more. Really? That makes me so happy. I feel the same way. We were both avid MLB fans, which was another strong connection. We helped each other learn languages and had occasional conversations in English, deepening our understanding of one another. Eventually, Anna traveled to America, and I got the chance to show her around. The first time I saw her in person, she was so adorable that I couldn't make eye contact for the first 5 minutes. We didn't like any particular team, so we went around from Fenway Park in Boston, but Anna was interested in many things and laughed a lot. Marty, these baseball-filled days have been amazing. I'm so happy, so I can't wait to come back. Please do. We can visit all the places we missed this time. I'll definitely come back. And Marty, you have to come to Germany next time. I'll show you around. It's so much fun. Accepting her invitation, I visited Germany, where Anna gave me a wonderful tour. With each meeting, my feelings for her grew stronger. Anna. The truth is I like you. Would you be my girlfriend? Anna looked surprised for a moment but soon smiled and nodded. Of course. I like you too, Marty. We maintained a long-distance relationship, and after graduating from university, I decided to move to Germany to be with her. Since then, I've lived in Germany, working at the Bayern Brewery, and Anna and I got married. Now, we live happily together with our daughter, Johanna. Alright, let's get to it. As usual, I sat down at my desk, went through my emails, and tackled the day's tasks. That's when the phone rang, a call from the chairman's office. Picking up the receiver, the chairman's secretary informed me, Mr. Dans would like to see you immediately. Sensing something serious, I hurried to the chairman's office. When I entered, Michael Dans, the chairman of Bayern Brewery, was looking at me with a grave expression. Thank you for coming, Marty. I need to discuss a serious issue. It's about the New York branch in America. Their sales have been plummeting. Even during the summer, which is usually the peak season. Compared to last year, the numbers are shockingly low. Mr. Dans furrowed his brow, his expression heavy. I could feel the weight of the situation. Even in summer? That's very concerning. Exactly. As you know, America is a critical market for Bayern Brewery. But with these sales figures, we may have to consider pulling out of the region entirely. I gasped for a moment at his words. Bayern Brewery had long held a strong market share in America. For that position to falter would be a significant blow to the company. That's why I'm asking for your help. I need your experience and insight. I want you to go to America, assess the situation on site. Identify the root cause of the problem and propose a solution. Without a second thought, I nodded. This was a critical moment for the company, and a strong sense of responsibility and mission swelled within me. Certainly, Mr. Dans. I'll go to America and conduct a thorough investigation. I'm counting on you, Marty. I have high expectations for your abilities. Please leave as soon as possible. I gave him a firm nod, offered a polite farewell, and left his office. As I walked back to my desk, I began mentally mapping out the steps I'd need to take for this important assignment. When I got home, Anna and Johanna were chatting happily in the living room. "Oh, you're home early today." "Daddy's home." Johanna ran over and hugged me as I greeted her with a warm smile. I took a deep breath, a bit nervous about what I was about to say. I have to go to America unexpectedly. There's some trouble at one of the branches. Anna looked surprised but quickly smiled gently. I understand. Don't worry about things here. I'll take care of everything. Just focus on your work and do your best. She wrapped her arms around me reassuringly. And Johanna beamed, patting my head. Go, Daddy. You've got this. Their warm words filled me with gratitude and determination, and I hugged them both tightly. Johanna and Anna's laughter filled the room. With their support behind me, I embarked on my journey to America. Returning to America for the first time in years felt nostalgic, but I wasted no time heading to Bayern Brewery's New York branch the next day. My official purpose there was listed as mid-career trainee orientation. Hello, I'm Marty, starting my training here today. When I told the receptionist, she promptly escorted me to the marketing department. Although I was there under the guise of a trainee, my real goal was to thoroughly analyze the branch's operations and identify the underlying issues. Upon arriving at the marketing department, I was introduced to May, the team leader. I'm May, the leader of the marketing team. It's nice to meet you. She is a woman in her 30s with a warm smile, her calm demeanor standing out. Nice to meet you too. I'm Marty. Thank you for having me. May then said, let me introduce you to the team, and led me to the center of the office floor. As she called everyone's attention, the employees gathered around, and I introduced myself. I'm Marty, and I'll be joining the marketing department for training. It's a pleasure to work with you all. Polite applause followed, but my attention was drawn to one man in particular. Because he showed blatant disdain for my greeting. He looked me up and down and then grinned a sarcastic smile. So, you're the new mid-career hire? I'm Jesse Smith. Marketing's pretty tough, you know. Think you can handle it? By the way, how old are you? Taken aback by his rude attitude, I answered calmly. I'm 35. At that, Jesse burst out laughing. Seriously? 35 and a mid-career trainee? That's insane. No way you're any good at this. While those around him stiffened at his words, May opened her mouth with a grim expression. Stop it, Jesse. That's extremely disrespectful to Marty. But instead of backing down, Jesse clicked his tongue and glared at her. Ha! Don't act all high and mighty just because you're the leader. His audacity left me stunned. It was hard to believe someone could behave so brazenly, even in a professional setting. Are you serious? I mutter this in my mind and watch the situation. Well, it's pretty much confirmed that a 35-year-old newbie is useless. Watch how I do things and learn from me. I joined as a new grad. And I'm really good at this. Jesse's tone was dripping with arrogance and self-importance. Even at first glance, it was obvious he was overconfident and convinced of his own superiority. He made no effort to hide his condescending attitude toward me. Deciding to stay calm, I chose not to let my emotions show and responded with composure. Thank you. I'll be sure to use you as a role model. I smiled politely, and Jesse, clearly satisfied with himself, nodded smugly before returning to his work. As I watched him walk away, I began to reflect. Was Jesse a central figure in the marketing department of this branch? If so, his behavior might be a significant factor negatively impacting the company's operations. This might be a more serious problem than I initially thought. I murmured internally, resolving to keep a close eye on him. As I settled into the New York branch, more of the internal dynamics began to reveal themselves. First, it was about May, the leader of the marketing department. The marketing team leader was the backbone of the department. She led meetings with precision, actively engaging team members and drawing out their ideas. "Mickey, do you have anything to add to this data? You're always so thorough, and your insights really help. If there's anything else you think we should include, let us know." Yes, I looked deeper into the trends for the next target demographic. Here's some data I think would be valuable. Team members actively contributed their thoughts, and May was constantly supporting them, creating a collaborative and effective environment. Her leadership and sharp questioning skills left a strong impression on me. On the other hand, Jesse, who claimed to be highly capable, was, "Are you kidding me?" I couldn't help but mutter under my breath as I observed him during a meeting. While serious discussions were underway, Jesse was hiding his phone behind a file, playing a game. He wore a serious expression to mask his actions but occasionally grinned when something in the game amused him. When bored, he'd whisper jokes to the colleague next to him, stifling laughter. Who cares about the data? Just wing it, and it'll work out. While the rest of the team engaged in meaningful discussions, Jesse's behavior remained immature and disruptive. It wasn't just frustrating, but it was giving me an actual headache. Wow, thank you. Marty, your reports are always so clear and easy to understand. May's bright smile as she reviewed my materials was a welcome change of pace. I totally agree. These are incredibly helpful. The data is accurate, too. The reports I prepared quickly gained a reputation in the marketing department for their clarity and precision. Hearing such positive feedback from May and my colleagues genuinely made me happy. Really? I'm glad to hear that. It's a relief. Soon, my reports became essential for project progress. And more colleagues began requesting my assistance with data collection and analysis. To me, research was the foundation of effective marketing. If the data was flawed, every subsequent action could end up being a waste of effort. That's why I prioritized gathering accurate, reliable data, even if it required significant time and effort. Jesse, however, didn't share that philosophy. Data doesn't matter. Just wing it. It'll work out somehow. He often said this with a grin. I suspected his approach would lead to failure eventually, and sure enough, one day, Jesse appeared at my desk. "Hey, old man trainee, make me a report, will you? I'm swamped over here. I'd love to help, but I'm already juggling a lot right now. If you can give me a bit of time to wrap up my current tasks, I can assist. When's the deadline for this report?" I thought my response struck a balance. But Jesse's face darkened with annoyance, and he raised his voice. "Come on, just get it done already." I said I'm in a rush, didn't I? Jesse, don't be unreasonable. Marty has his own work to do. But Jesse ignored me completely and shouted, "Just do it already." He slammed a USB onto my desk without a second thought. I couldn't help but let out a sigh, but May, looking genuinely apologetic, approached me. "I'm so sorry. Let me return this for you." May then tried to pick up the USB, and I stopped her. "It's fine. I'll try to adjust my workload and see if I can make time to handle it." "But," I told May, who lowered her eyebrows, how I really felt. "If I do it myself, I can guarantee it will be done properly." Jesse doesn't take data seriously. May looked surprised at my bluntness but eventually nodded in agreement. "You're right. Honestly, we've had so many problems with him." I wanted to ask her why Jesse had such a high and mighty attitude. But the dark circles under May's eyes and her evident exhaustion made me hold back. Instead, I reassured her once again and turned my focus to reviewing my tasks. After shuffling my schedule, I made time to create the report Jesse had demanded. "Jesse, here's the report." When I handed the materials I had prepared to Jesse, he looked dissatisfied with them as he skimmed through them. "This isn't good enough. I need it to match my style more." For some reason, he started saying with a fierce tone, so I felt a pang of frustration. I had put considerable effort into ensuring the report was accurate and thorough, so I can't afford to let him do anything strange. Adjusting the layout is fine, but making other changes might introduce errors. Jesse glared at me, his annoyance bubbling over. I said, "I'll just fix the layout." "Got it?" "All right," I replied, watching him stomp off with the report. I couldn't shake the feeling that something would go wrong. A few days later, we had a crucial meeting with an important client. "Let me present this to you," Jesse said confidently as he handed out the materials. However, as the clients began reviewing the report, their expressions darkened. "This data is incorrect. This report is completely useless." "What? Let me see that." May grabbed the report from Jesse's hands and examined it with me. I peek in with her, but it's all kinds of, well, almost a mess. I wanted to shout, "Wasn't it just the layout you were going to change?" but held my tongue. "This isn't the report I reviewed at all." May's voice was sharp with frustration, and the room grew tense. The clients, furious about the mistakes in such critical data, abruptly stood and left the meeting. Chaos erupted, and the situation spiraled rapidly out of control. Shortly after, May, Jesse, and I were summoned to the president's office. "What is going on here? Explain this mess immediately." I met the president for the first time since I came here. I believe his name was Terry Smith. His face is bright red, and he is furious. May began explaining the situation as calmly as she could, but Jesse interrupted, eager to shift the blame. "Listen, Dad. It was Marty's fault. He's the one who made the report. I just used it." "What? Dad?" I blurted out in shock, unable to contain my reaction. "That's right. My dad is Terry Smith, the president of the New York branch," Jesse declared, puffing out his chest, his already inflated ego swelling 100-fold. While I knew the branch president's name was Terry Smith, I never imagined they were father and son. It was such a common last name, after all. With all due respect, Mr. Smith, the materials I prepared were accurate when I completed them. "Perhaps your son made some changes?" "What? No way." Mr. Smith observed the exchange with a cold, detached expression. "Do you have a problem with my son?" At that moment, I realized there was no saving this situation. The catastrophic decline in sales at the New York branch suddenly made perfect sense. Jesse, now emboldened by his father's support, sneered at me. "See? Even my dad says so. You better start doing your job properly." I could only stare at Jesse, incredulous. Mr. Smith began defending his son more fervently. "My Jesse is an elite employee. Couldn't you have covered for a small mistake like this?" The two of them, father and son, exuded unprofessionalism and arrogance, reinforcing the dysfunction that plagued the branch. Before Mr. Smith could continue, May interrupted sharply, her voice trembling with frustration. "I can't stay silent any longer. Time and again, you've ignored our well-prepared proposals and instead put your faith in Jesse's half-baked ideas." Mr. Smith looked stunned, and Jesse was momentarily speechless. May pressed on. "And look where it's gotten us. Sales have plummeted. We've worked tirelessly to find solutions, only for you to dismiss them. Instead, you've enabled Jesse to boss everyone around, hiding behind the excuse that he's the president's son." "Enough is enough." Her voice echoed through the room, trembling with anger and exhaustion. "I just want to do my job. But I can't keep cleaning up your son's messes. I've reached my limit." I quit. Seeing May start to cry, I placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. She must have really been at her limit, crying so hard that her body was shaking. It's okay, May. Everyone here knows how hard you've worked. We've all seen it and appreciate it. She wiped her tears and nodded slightly. But her sorrow was still evident. Taking a deep breath, I turned to face Mr. Smith and Jesse. Mr. Smith, it's time to address the real issue here. Jesse's behavior is not only unprofessional but outright destructive to this branch and its employees. If this continues, it won't just be this branch, and your actions could jeopardize the entire company. Mr. Smith's face turned red with anger as he snapped back. Are you saying my son is incompetent? Jesse is the heir to this branch. He's going to succeed me. How dare you question that? Jesse, riding the wave of his father's indignation, smirked and added, You, of all people, criticizing the next president? You're 100 years too early. With a flourish, Jesse grabbed a promotional beer can from the table, popped it open, and dumped its contents over my head without hesitation. The cold beer trickled down my hair and face as May let out a horrified gasp. How's that? This is how I handle things. Jesse laughed loudly, reveling in his childish display. I stood silently, making no move to wipe the beer away, my gaze locked coldly on Jesse and Mr. Smith. Take responsibility for your words. The low voice I uttered echoed, and the air in the room became even more tense. May rushed out of the room. She soon returned and in her hand was a towel she had brought from somewhere. Marty! Are you all right? That would be a shock to see something like this in front of her. There are tears in her eyes again. I gave her a reassuring smile and took the towel, wiping my hair and face. Thank you, May. And for the record, you're not the one who needs to quit. If anyone's leaving, it'll be these two. With the three of them dumbfounded, I took my phone out of my pocket and checked the time difference. Then, silently, I operated the app and began making video calls. Mr. Smith sneered, watching me make the call. What are you trying to do? Call for help? It's pointless. Jesse laughed along, mimicking his father's disdain. Only useless people quit. We're not going anywhere. You think the next president of this branch is going down here? Not a chance. The two of them continued to revel in their arrogance, completely oblivious to the gravity of the situation. May, however, wasn't hiding her exhaustion anymore. She looked completely worn out. I glanced briefly at them, then focused on the phone as the call connected. The face of Mr. Dans, the chairman of the company in Germany, appeared on the screen. Realizing I was still damp from the beer, I straightened my posture to maintain some professionalism. Mr. Dans, I apologize for disturbing you at this late hour. However, I need to report a serious issue here at the New York branch. Instantly, Mr. Smith and Jesse's laughter stopped. I adjusted the camera so that everyone in the room was visible on the call. As soon as Mr. Smith and Jesse recognized Mr. Dans on the screen, their expressions changed to ones of panic. A serious issue? Please explain, Marty. I succinctly outlined the events, from Jesse's unprofessional behavior to Mr. Smith's blatant favoritism, and detailed how these actions were contributing to the branch's poor performance. This is deeply troubling. Mr. Smith, I'll need an explanation from you. His horrifyingly cold gaze shot through Mr. Smith, and also through Jesse next to him. Mr. Smith's face went pale as he stammered. Well, you see, my son is still young, and everyone makes mistakes. Jesse tried to interject, but I continued firmly. Mr. Dans, I must recommend that we proceed with shutting down the New York branch. I calmly spoke to Mr. Dans. At this point, it is unsustainable and poses a risk to the company as a whole. May then fearfully raised one hand and opened her mouth. Excuse me, Mr. Dans. May I say something? I know it might not be my place, but... Of course. Don't be so afraid, Mr. Dans won't mind. I nodded to May, who looked worried, and Mr. Dans nodded with a kind expression. Please tell us your story. I want to hear. Encouraged, May nodded, though tears glistened in her eyes as she began. I'm May, the marketing team leader. We've all been working so hard, but the behavior of these two has made it unbearable. Not just for me but for everyone in the office. May shouts out her heart. Mr. Dans also has a serious expression on his face. Mr. Dans, we want to work in a supportive environment. My team is full of incredibly talented people who care about this company. They love the work. But they've been crushed by all this. We could have done so much more if our strategies had been implemented properly. Instead, there were people crying because their efforts were wasted. Mr. Danz's expression softened as he listened, nodding solemnly. Thank you, May. You've done exceptionally well under such circumstances, and I deeply appreciate your dedication. But Mr. Dans was silent for a few moments, then nodded. The decision is clear. The New York branch will be shut down. Mr. Smith, you and Jesse are terminated, effective immediately. Mr. Smith and Jesse's faces turned ghostly pale, their confidence crumbling as they stammered in protest. May's face falls painfully. Wait. This is too sudden. My son is still learning, he's not ready to be let go. Yeah. My dad promised I'd be the next president. You can't just take that away. I calmly listened to the out-of-touch excuses and evasions of responsibility coming from both of them. It's too late. You have destroyed our business, and what are you going to do about it? No, it's a misunderstanding. We did our best. We just did it a little wrong. I am so sorry. Jesse also expressed the same apology, but there was no sincerity in his words. They were just superficial, flimsy words. Jesse snatched my phone and began to plead with him, showing himself on the screen. I'm sorry. But you can't fire the next president. This is unfair. You can't do this to me. Jesse became more and more agitated, glaring at me and raising his voice. Certainly, it is unthinkable in a normal company to call the chairman directly and make a report. You? A mere mid-career hire? How could someone like you possibly connect with Mr. Dans and get us fired? This is ridiculous. Who do you think you are? At that moment, Mr. Dans let out a long, heavy sigh. One that carried an unmistakable tone of exasperation. Ignorance truly is a dangerous thing. You clearly don't understand the reality of the situation. He's far more than just a mid-career hire. I calmly retrieved my phone from Jesse and locked eyes with both him and Mr. Smith. Let me clarify, Marty is the CEO of Bayern Brewery's headquarters in Germany. He has full authority to terminate your employment and recommend the closure of the New York branch. And here you are, exposing your ignorance with such confidence. It's utterly shameful. The unexpected words already had the three of them standing on sticks. May's eyes are wide open and she is holding her mouth. Is this real? The words she muttered were probably speaking on behalf of the three people who were present. Hearing these words, Mr. Smith and his son were stunned for a while, but then they must have understood the meaning. Their faces turned pale and they were shaking. CEO? As the words reached his ears, Jesse fell to his knees and Mr. Smith was also stunned. Mr. Dans begins to talk about me through the screen. Marty has been my right-hand man for years. His work in Germany has been exemplary, consistently exceeding expectations. There isn't a single person at headquarters who doubts his ability or dedication. Jesse looked at me, his disbelief palpable. It was clear that he had never considered the possibility that the mid-career hire he had mocked could be someone so far above him. Mr. Dans added, "And one more thing, he is also my son." The room erupted in a collective gasp. Jesse and Mr. Smith were rendered speechless, and May's mouth fell open in disbelief. Everyone's reaction is as if they don't understand the reality of the situation. Your son. That's correct, Marty is my son-in-law. He fell in love with my daughter, moved to Germany, and built his career from the ground up. I've never coddled him, especially in business. His accomplishments are the result of his own talent, determination, and hard work. I was so touched by Mr. Danza's words, or rather my father-in-law's words, that I was filled with gratitude. My father-in-law was indeed strict, but I knew properly that he was thinking of me, and he is a truly loving person. I'm not usually one to show my emotions, but the back of my nose was aching. And you, Mr. Smith. You've spoiled your son and failed to teach him the responsibilities of leadership. If you wanted him to succeed, you should have demanded accountability and results instead of shielding him from the consequences of his actions. Mr. Smith's face turned red, and he tried to argue, but he was overwhelmed by Mr. Danza's sharp eyes and closed his mouth. Marty, you've done an exceptional job. Your efforts have not only upheld the values of this company but have also brought immense pride to our family. You are an irreplaceable asset to both. A genuine smile spread across my face. Then, with gratitude, I said a few words over the phone. Thank you, Dad. My father-in-law also smiled and nodded. I'll be waiting for you in Germany. I love you, son. I hung up the phone, sincerely satisfied. Thus, I left the president's office quietly with May, leaving Mr. Smith and Jesse sitting there. Soon after that, Mr. Smith and Jesse were fired. It was a natural result after all they had done. When the decision was made to withdraw from the New York branch, and the president's office was being cleaned out, May and several employees entered the president's office with great energy. Wait. Please, give us another chance. Her eyes are serious and the employees around her look determined. What do you mean? We'll rebuild this branch, give us 2 years. Just 2 years, and I promise we'll turn things around. I was surprised, but at the same time struck by the strength of her will. Rather than abandoning the New York branch, they would rebuild it. These people can do it. That's what I thought. After deciding to give the New York branch a chance at recovery, I immediately called my father-in-law to discuss the matter. Having already recommended the branch's closure, and knowing Mr. Danza's firm stance, I was nervous about bringing it up. All right, let's give it a shot, he said unexpectedly, his tone calm and decisive. To begin with, submit a thorough plan first. The employees who endured such tyranny are bound to unleash their potential now that those two are gone. There was a trace of amusement in his voice, which made me smile a little. After ending the call, I turned to May and her team. All right. You've got 2 years. Submit a detailed recovery plan first, and stay in close communication with me throughout. Let's make this work. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you so much. After that, May and I worked hard together to rebuild the New York branch. We had online meetings in Germany and New York and actively held meetings. We revamped the marketing approach, strengthened team dynamics, and crafted meticulous plans for growth. I frequently traveled to New York to provide on-the-ground support, while May demonstrated incredible leadership, rallying her team with unmatched determination. We did it. We actually did it. 2 years later, the New York branch achieved a remarkable turnaround, returning to profitability. May and I were pleased with the results together, and the branch office was successfully rebuilt. I'm really glad I believed in you guys. Thank you for believing in us, too. At that time, everyone in the room was crying, including me, of course. Thus, the German headquarters and the New York branch formed an even stronger bond, and they are now moving forward together into the future. When I reported to my father-in-law that the branch, which had been in such a depressed state, had successfully turned profitable, he was very pleased. Oh, I see. That's really good to hear. The New York branch is back on its feet, thanks to May and the rest of the team. My father-in-law smiled and took a sip of his beer. Don't sell yourself short. The results came because you believed in them. That's what makes you my son. Business, like life, is built on trust. Raising my beer, I nodded, filled with gratitude. And we couldn't have succeeded without your support, Dad. Thank you. I firmly expressed my gratitude with all the strength I have in my handshake. He used his other hand to gently pat my head. We're family. We support each other no matter what. Isn't that right? And always will be, he said with a playful wink. I nodded deeply and was grateful to have met someone I could respect as a father and a human being. With Anna, Johanna, and my father-in-law, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together as a family. Absolutely. We raised our glasses again, toasting to an even brighter future ahead.